Welcome to Shoot Time in the Morning
with Mitch.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another week back in the kitchen talking nutrition of Shoot Time in the Morning with Mitch. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Shoot Time in the Morning. We're here talking nutrition in the kitchen. As we said, as you can see, it's under construction. Just like it's being built from nothing, from the ground up, so is your bodies. And it's important that you utilize the right materials. Right here, the kitchen's getting drywalled, and you saw the frame before, building up from the very bottom. For your body, you got to put the right things into it. You may have heard the term, you are what you eat. Does that mean if you eat a lot of fish, you're going to turn into a fish? That's not what it means, folks. What it means is, if you eat healthy, you're going to be healthy. If you eat nothing but junk food all day, your body's going to be unhealthy and junky. So, breaking down the knowledge we're giving to you, and make sure that you find a way to incorporate it into your lives. The goal is not to make you eat a terrible, nasty bunch of food that you just don't like. The point is to have you understand the nutrition so you can enjoy the foods that you already like. Find some foods that you may not have tried that you will like, but do so in a nice, well-balanced diet. So far, we talked about calories. Calories are the energy of the food. The unit is called a calorie. How much energy do you burn in your body is also called a calorie. You burn calories in your body and you replace it with calories from the food that you eat. Under the calorie branch, we have 3 macronutrients. We have protein, which we covered so far, which is the building block for our body. We got hair, muscles, bones, fingernails, you name it. They are built by proteins. Carbohydrates, the energy source. And then we have our long-term energy source, which you're going to learn about today, and that is fat. Dun, dun, dun. Ladies and gentlemen, fat is not necessarily the enemy. Fat is not necessarily the enemy. It's worth me repeating because there was a time in American dietary history where people thought that if you ate fat, you're going to get fat. That's simply not true. But if you eat too much fat and you don't do any exercise, you will get fat. Because all fat is on our bodies is the storage of extra energy so it can be used at a later date. Here's the deal. They're eschewing all the politics. There was a time in the 80s and the 70s where they pushed for low fat to get rid of all the fat because the thought process was that fat is what made you fat. So they removed the fat, the naturally occurring fats, from the various items that were high in fat or utilized it. But you can't sell something with no fat and no nothing in it because it's going to taste terrible. So how do they make it taste good? Well, they put sugar in it and they balance the sugar up. And we're going to talk about sugar at a later date. But fat has an unnecessarily unearned bad reputation. But there are bad fats and good fats, and we need to know these. So we're going to talk a little bit about fat right now. Fat is an energy source, a long-term energy source, and you can survive on fat and a little protein alone. As a matter of fact, there are many cultures that do just that. We talked about the Inuit people of Alaska last week, and guess what? They are one of those cultures. If you live above the Arctic Circle, it's chilly up there, guys. What's the coldest you've ever been in? Mr. Mitchell, where's the coldest place you've ever been?
I would have to say I've been to Alaska.
Alaska, pretty chilly, I bet. Pretty chilly up there, especially if you go in the wintertime. Mr. Morn-Henwick?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston, Massachusetts. Oh, yeah, it gets nice and chilly up there. My family's from the Midwest, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. It gets cold. But tell you what, as cold as it gets in Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Boston, and it gets cold. I've been in -20 before, and that's freezing cold, well below freezing cold. You get up by the Arctic Circle, it's permanently cold like that at the northern part of the world, and plants don't grow. You can't go out and water the plants and the water's going to freeze, all right? It doesn't work like that. It's so cold, there's permafrost, that plants don't go. So, since they don't grow, you can't grow plants to eat. So they eat what they have available. They eat usually a lot of whale meat, and whale blubber. And the blubber is full of energy. That is just the gist of it. That's how it works. So, saying that to say, your body can do without carbs and utilize fat. Is it the best? That's up for debate right now in the scientific circles. But it definitely is not unhealthy to do so if that's the environment your body's placed in. And to show you the density of energy in fat as opposed to the density of energy in carbohydrates as an energy source, 1 gram of fat contains 9 calories. 1 gram of carbohydrates is 4 calories. Remember, so there's twice as much energy in 1 gram of fat when compared to 1 gram of carbohydrates. Now, fat is exactly the same thing you're thinking about in terms of animal fat when it comes to animals. So, the same way human beings store energy for later is the same way a bear does, a cow does, a chicken, a pig, you name it. They store fat for energy for later, just like human beings. Well, many of these things we eat, and there is fat associated with it. There are 2 types of fat. There is saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Unsaturated fat is usually found from plant sources, and it is liquid at room temperature. So, when it's warm out, for instance, I have an example of an unsaturated fat, coconut oil. It's wintertime out here in San Jose, and it's not super cold, but this looks like a big white solid mass right here. If it were the summertime and it gets up to 85 degrees, 90, this is a clear liquid. You can swirl it around, right? If you put it in the pan or you put it out next to the heater, if I put it next to the heater, then it'll become liquid. So, all unsaturated fats are liquid at room temperature. Saturated fats are usually found in animal products. And since I like to eat meat, and I think everyone here likes to eat meat, we're going to start with a little saturated fat. I just pulled some things right out of the freezer. As you can see, the kitchen here is not really ready for cooking. So, I didn't have anything prepared. The grill's out back. That's usually how I like to cook. And we're going to talk about, in a future video, the best way to prepare things to make sure that it's kind of healthy too. So, right here, we have a package of beef ribs. Now, I chose the beef ribs, 1, because they're delicious, 2, because they're delicious, and 3, because they're delicious. But 4, because I want to show you can see, if we zoom in here on the beef ribs, you can see the meat, but you can also see the white marbling that surrounds all of the package, all right? That white marbling is fat, all right? A beef rib, same as a pork rib, same as a human rib, is the rib cage of the animal. We eat the rib cage of the pig and the cow, and that is where most of our fat is stored, either around the ribs and then in the midsection. So, fattier cuts of meat, the ribeye, are found in the midsection. If you see this marbling, this is the fat mixed with the muscle part of the rib around it. Now, the fat is what gives the meat its flavor. If you find a fatty piece of meat, it's going to have a better flavor than a non-fatty cut of meat. Some of the fat is intramuscular. It's inside the muscles. And some of it is a layer of fat covering that they include with the meat. Now, saying that to say, if you have fat, some people like to trim the fat off the steak before they cook it. Some people will cook the steak and then trim the fat. But the fat is what provides the flavor for the meat. But all it is energy from the cows, whatever it eats. What do cows eat? Grass. Did you know a cow has 3 stomachs, by the way, to digest the grass and the cud? It's a very unique thing. But we digress. We have the ribs here. We eat the meat. The fat stored from all that extra energy and it shows up on our meat. Now, we have various other forms of meat that we got here. Like I said, I just went to the fridge. I got a little Kirkland Signature top sirloin ground beef patties, burger patties. All right. There are delicious, delicious amounts of fat in here. This is a 85% lean, 15% fat mix. And for one burger patty, it has 23 grams of fat. Couple that with 28 grams of carbohydrate, and 28 grams of protein, 0 carbohydrate. Remember, animal meat does not have carbohydrate in it. So correction there. Now, one thing to remember about this, the meat. When you eat certain animals, all right, you may not have to worry about it because you're not cooking. But if you eat steak, you can eat a rare steak or a medium rare steak. That means there's a little bit of pink center in the middle or red, because the bacteria from the meat is on the outside of the meat. So, sear, cook the meat. If you like it well done, cook it well done. But if you like it rare like I like it, Mr. Morningway, how do you take your steak?
Medium rare.
Mr. Mitchell?
Medium rare.
Medium rare. That means you got a nice pink center in the middle. All right, the bacteria is killed on the outside, the inside is good, assuming the meat was properly kept and refrigerated and all of that. A burger, what they do is they put all the parts of the meat that's left over or that they can't sell individually into a grinder. They grind it out into a ground beef, and then they put it in a patty shape, or they give you the ground beef and you make your own patties. So what that means is all the outside of the bacteria, the outside of the meat is mixed with the inside, and then you have a mixture. So you got to make sure you cook your burgers all the way through. Always get a burger, cook it all the way through. With pork and chicken, different bacteria grow, salmonella, things like that. Get worms from pork. Always cook your pork and your chicken well done. Fish, certain fish you can eat, depending if it's the proper grade, raw, as like sushi. Now, most cooked fish you want to cook too, especially if it comes from the sea, because there are parasites in it, and that's a story for another time. But we got ground beef here, all right, and we got beef ribs. I have chicken in the garage, in the freezer, but the point being meat, 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 fat, fat, fat. Chicken fat, a little bit different, okay? Chicken fat, a little bit different. They say beef is the highest fat containing animal that we eat. So be careful with your fat selections. Enjoy a nice steak from time to time, but don't go hog wild on the steak, okay? Next we have my favorite, fish. This is a fillet of salmon, all right? Salmon has a very healthy type of fat called omega-3 fats, all right? There are all types of fat categories we're not going to get into, but you need omega-3s, you need omega-6s, and you can find those in different types of sources. Salmon is the best source for it. So much so that if you don't like fish and you don't want to eat the salmon, they actually sell a supplement on the market for omega-3 fish oil. And I like fish, and I take a fish oil supplement. Do either of you take a fish oil supplement?
No, but I eat a lot of salmon.
I eat a lot of salmon. There you go. So, fish oil here. The fish oil contains omega-3s. It's about 360 milligrams, and it helps to keep your heart healthy. We're going to continue down the line with the saturated fats. Remember, animal products mostly. This is one that we cook with. Butter, right? Butter is basically made as a product of dairy from the cow. Now, butter has fat in it, and you see, not only is it solid, but it is basically animal fat. We want you basically to get that realization. There's animal fat and plant fats, and they're different. But butter tastes delicious. There's been some debate on how good butter is for you. But butter is basically mostly fat. Now we go to some of the plant-based style fats, or the unsaturated fats. And we got the one that I probably use the most. It's olive oil. And you can see room temperature, the olive oil is liquid. It's liquid. Now with this olive oil, if I were to put it in the refrigerator, it would then freeze up and become solid, because at a certain temperature unsaturated fats, all harden and become solid. Now, olive oil is a good way to cook your food. Some people use peanut oil. Some people use vegetable oil. Mr. Mitchell, you're a cook. What kind of oil do you use?
I'm an olive oil kind of guy.
You use the olive oil, all right? Olive oil. And when they say olive oil or peanut oil or you name it, almond oil, whatever kind of oil they use, what they do is they put it into a press. They put the seeds and they put it into a press. They press it, and when you have one seed, maybe you only get a little drop of oil. But you got thousands upon millions of seeds, and you press it, and the oil comes out, and you get a vat of oil. And this stuff is delicious, not only to cook with, not only to drizzle over a nice salad dressing, not only to dip a piece of bread in if you're having pasta and bread night, whatever it is, but olive oil is wonderful for you. And speaking of salad dressing, this is a nice Caesar dressing here, but you got to be careful, guys. A lot of people don't realize that a salad is about as healthy as you can get. And a salad with a piece of lean meat, forget about it. You're in heaven. But some of the salad dressings that you use, depending on what you use, can have a lot of calories. And usually a lot of it's either loaded in the form of sugar or the form of fat. So 1 tablespoon of this Caesar dressing is 15 grams of fat. Well, what's 15 times 9, folks? That's how many total calories that are in this 1 teaspoon of dressing. And I don't know about you guys, but when I make a salad with dressing, I'm not putting 1 teaspoon on. It's usually, you put a little bit on and mix it up, and usually it's probably about 3 or 4 teaspoons. So be wary where these extra calories can come from. And one last source we're going to show here about fat is peanuts. Peanuts, walnuts, almonds, all great sources of fat. Nuts in general are a great source of fat. And if you get the peanuts, they're all delicious. You want to do like Mr. Mitchell does, and Mr. Shoemaker does most of the time, get the raw nuts. Some of these nuts that are processed, like such, boy, they add a lot of stuff to it. This is a peanut. It also has sugar, salt, and a bunch of things on it. So be wary of that. But these here peanuts, for 1 ounce, is 14 grams of fat and 170 calories. And when we do our serving size, I'm going to show you exactly what that means. But fat is good, saturated, unsaturated, the 2 types of fats. And be aware that fat packs a punch, 9 calories per 1 gram. Mr. Moore-Henwick?
I have a question for you guys. What is your favorite fatty food? I know there's a lot of them that we all like, guys. There's a lot of them that Mr. Shoemaker, Mr. Mitchell, Mr. M like, but I'm going to ask you to give us your favorite fatty food. Mr. Mitchell, what do you think?
Well, as I got older, I started to get healthy. I started to think about the things that I put in my body. So I'm going to go with my favorite healthy fat, and that would be the avocado. The avocado. Now, my class, some of my students already know that I'm a big fan of the avocado. And so this morning, I had a 3-egg omelet with a half an avocado in there, some cheese, and it was a perfect way to start the day. Last night, I had a Caesar salad. Talking about Caesar, I had a Caesar salad with the romaine dressing and the Caesar, but I chopped up a whole avocado and threw that in there with the Caesar also. I mean, I love the avocado. It is just, it's a wonderful fruit, and it is.
Mr. Shoemaker.
Absolutely. Before I answer that question, he mentioned eggs. Eggs are another great source of fat and protein, so keep that in your mind as well, too. Mr. Shoemaker, as you can well tell, is a meat guy here. I'll be honest with you, Mr. Shoemaker likes meat. I like the avocado like Mr. Mitchell as well. I do like the olive oil. I think if I'm going to be realistic, my same food that is a source of protein, the salmon sashimi from the sushi, since it's my favorite food at this current moment, and also has loads of heart healthy fat, I think that would be what I would go with. However, fried foods contain a lot of fat because they fry them in oil, and I gotta tell you, get me and Mr. Moore-Henwick around some fried shrimp and all you can eat fried lobster, forget about it. That's all I'm gonna say. But I'm gonna go with the salmon. I'm gonna go with the salmon.
All right, good. Well, I would say mine, very well, I have a lot of them, but I think honey roasted peanuts. You get me a bottle like Mr. Shoemake held up earlier. Bottle of those peanuts. I think I could take that whole thing down. I love honey roasted peanuts. Honey roasted. Without flavor, peanuts go down on my scale of favorites. But when they're honey roasted, I enjoy them. I enjoy them. All right, sports factor. What's on your mind in this video?
All right, we're staying basketball. We talked about the guy from the last video who scored the most points in one game.
Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain!
Absolutely, Wilt the Stilt. So now, we're going to stick with points. Who has the most points in a career in basketball?
Nice.
The whole career. Let's think about that.
Jolly geographer.
Hey, folks! I'm jolly as jolly can be because I got food all around me. And I love it. And here we are in the kitchen, the best place to be, except for I'm a little less jolly because the appliances aren't here right now. We'll get to that later.
You can't cook that burger right now, which is a sad state of affairs.
Oh, baby. Now, my favorite protein and my favorite fat is the salmon sashimi. So, in the realm of fish, I'm going to ask you, there's an American city that is well known for having a large fish market where they throw the fish. It's quite a famous thing in America. Which city is known for having a fresh fish market right on the water, and they throw the fish down from the boat from the truck or the boat, depending where it comes from, into the fish market, and it's a show. People come and watch just to see them throw the fish.
Well, Mr. Shoemake, Mr. Mitchell, what did the hamburger name its baby girl?
What do you name it?
Patty!
Oh.
Well, guys, quick principle before we go. This is a principle that keep you out of trouble. Mr. Shoemake, Mr. Mitchell, and I could probably tell you a lot of stories about this principle. So here it is. The best way to stay out of trouble. Positive people, positive places. Choose positive people to be around. People who are, I know you've heard it probably 1,000 times since you've been at Bret Hart, depending on your teacher. But positive people are those who are honest, respectful, and responsible. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Absolutely.
It's a pretty simple formula, guys. So positive people. Secondly, positive places. Put yourself in positive places. All right? So if you're around positive people and you're in positive places, you're going to be a lot more successful. So again, it's positive people, positive places, not negative. Positive, 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 negative.
Whoa! What's going on here? What are we even doing here?
We're building healthy relationships.
And what's the purpose of Bret Hart?
HR squared.
Honesty, respect, responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, building health for your wealth. That is the knowledge we are putting in your life right now so you can live a long, healthy life. And we look forward to seeing you way down the line. But right now, just try to be a little bit better today than you were yesterday and keep on pushing. Push out 3. 1, 2, 3. Push!